The Dreamcast is one of my favorite systems of all time. Released in 1999, the Sega Dreamcast was Sega's last home console, and a lot of people felt that they went out kind of on a weak note. I think they went out on a bang though. There were so many awesome games for this system, and it's a shame that it was just overran by the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 had a DVD player, and DVDs were a hot commodity at the time, so it made a lot more sense for people to pick up a PlayStation 2. Also, the Dreamcast had a traditional Sega botch launch, and of course you could burn the games right onto a CDR and play them on the Dreamcast, so piracy was running rampant on the system. But in actuality, I still love the Dreamcast. I think it's a super underrated console, and there's so many awesome games for it, like Shenmue and Sega GT, Sonic Adventure, that everyone knows about. But there's a lot of hidden gems for the console as well, and so I decided to do another Hidden Gems video. This time we're going to look at hidden gems for the Dreamcast. Let's see what I can find. Street racing of import cars started becoming pretty popular in the late 90s and early 2000s, but no games really replicated that feeling, as they were either racing sims or strictly arcade games. Tokyo Extreme Racer was one of the first games to embrace the street racing lifestyle, with a heavy focus on car customization. Instead of racetracks, you would take your car onto the streets of Tokyo and flash your headlights at other cars you wanted to race. It was a unique style of racing game and had some pretty solid graphics. The actual racing was a bit stiff, but the uniqueness of Tokyo Extreme Racer was just undeniable. The original D was an interesting point-and-click adventure style game, and a pseudo-sequel with the same characters was released on the Saturn as Enemy Zero. D2 ditched the point-and-click style and was more of a traditional survival horror game. A plane that your character Laura is on is overtaken by cult-like terrorists and sent crashing into a snowy Canadian wilderness. Laura quickly realizes that something is off as she has to battle some strange creatures. The story is pretty dark and the gameplay is interesting, as when you are in the open, you play in third person, but it switches to first person in interior sections of the game. D2 honestly is one of my favorite Dreamcast games, and although it's a little bit pricey, is a very unique experience only on the Dreamcast. Shadowman was one of the few M-rated games for the N64, and was a pretty fun experience that suffered from graphical issues such as frame rate and excessive fog. The Dreamcast version fixes all of those issues, and what you are left with is a true hidden gem. A dark and violent game, Shadowman really earns its M-rated rating with dark storytelling based on voodoo and other religious themes. With its non-linear gameplay and tons of side quests, along with really good presentation, Shadowman is a must-own for Dreamcast fans. TrickStyle was a game I didn't really know much about until I picked it up for cheap at my local retro store, and I'm really glad I did because TrickStyle is a really fun racing game. Using the extreme sports craze of the late 90s, TrickStyle has you using hoverboards to race. You choose from a variety of characters, each with strengths and weaknesses, and hit up various futuristic racetracks throughout a variety of worldwide locations. The game plays a bit like a classic Tony Hawk mixed with Wipeout, and still holds up well to this day. Considering how cheap the game is, TrickStyle should be in every Dreamcast owner's library. Death Crimson OX was a late release for the Dreamcast and wasn't very well received by critics, so it went mostly under the radar. A light gun game that plays a lot like House of the Dead, Death Crimson OX is a solid game for Dreamcast owners with a light gun. It has a cheesy story like most of the games did in this genre, but the game's mechanics and gameplay are a blast, no pun intended, while it lasts. You should definitely check out Death Crimson OX. Blue Stinger is a bit of a love it or hate it title, but I always enjoyed the game. A survival horror game with beat 'em up elements, Blue Stinger was unique in that it was one of the first survival horror games to use a traditional behind the back camera instead of a fixed camera angle that the Resident Evil series brought about. Investigating Dinosaur Island, which is under a mysterious dome of energy, you play as either Elliot or Dogs, and must figure out why there are hideous creatures taking over things. Dinosaur Island is fully open to explore, and the game is high on action. While the voice acting and graphics haven't aged with all that much grace, the game is super cheap, and fans of horror or action games should definitely check out Blue Stinger. Toy Commander is one of the most unique games ever and a really fun Dreamcast entry. After a kid named Andy gets some army-themed toys for Christmas and neglects his old toys, the old toys rise against to destroy the new ones, all while taking inside of Andy's house. Sounds a bit like Toy Story, come to think of it. Toy Commander has great variety in controlling of various vehicles, from planes to tanks to race cars, and is really a fun game with a lot of variety. The controls for the different vehicles can be a bit tricky to get used to, but the solid visuals and fun gameplay make Toy Commander a real unique gem in the Dreamcast library. The Dreamcast had a million fighting games on it, and most of them were pretty much awesome. One that is usually overlooked though is Plasma Sword, which is actually a sequel to the PS1 classic fighter Star Gladiator. Capcom was mostly known for 6-button 2D fighters, but Plasma Sword is actually a 4-button 3D fighter. You have 2 melee attacks, a kick button, and a button that allows for dodging and dashes. The gameplay is tight, the graphics are great, and it's just a really fun and complete fighter that not a lot of people talk about. It is a bit pricey, but if you could track down a copy and you love fighting games, Plasma Sword is a definite must-own on the Dreamcast. So those are some of the hidden gems on the Sega Dreamcast, which is, like I said, an awesome system. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. Due to the success of the N64 Hidden Gems video, if this video does well too, I'll continue to do more Hidden Gems, so let me know what kind of consoles you want to see me do in the future as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Later.